That's Steve here. How goes it? Just a little lecture on Project 1. Project, right? Let's talk a little bit about that and how this is going to work. Hopefully, how this is going to work. Okay, a little bit of overview. I've already put this in my email, but I'm going to say it again. One of the things about this group project is you're going to need to collaborate. You're going to have to work together. This is very important because actually in the real world you're going to be working with other people. You have to learn how to collaborate. And part of that collaboration, or part of that successful collaboration, is going to require good communication. Now, you can use any means you want to communicate. You can call each other up on the phone and exchange phone numbers. You can use email you can do through La Lima. You can use Zoom, you can use Slack, whatever it is you want to do, that's fine. You should also note that you're all going to be graded individually according to your role, okay? So you don't have to worry about one large group grade. No, that's not going to happen. Everyone's graded according to their role. At the end of the project, there'll be two different sets of evaluation also. One is going to be by your peers. So each of you get to evaluate each other. And then of course I go through and do my assessment as well. Okay, so I've already gone over the project with you basically. It's kind of a hypothetical business contract you've gotten, and you're creating a website for a business or nonprofit if you like. We have due dates coming up next week. You gotta just give me an idea of what you're gonna do, and I'll create an account based on that for you, a group account. Then there's another due date a week after that on just kind of laying out the project, how it might look, and the general topics of the pages. And then you're gonna have a couple more weeks to get this sucker up and on the Moonlight site. There's lots of work to do. Do not hesitate to contact me if you need anything. Don't wait to start this thing. You should start it right away. All right, there are a few things that I want to make sure we're all kind of clear on. If you already know all this stuff, hot dang. Opacity, some of you have had some difficulty with opacity. Some of you have had some questions about form field attributes, what an iframe is, animations, and about the JavaScript password strength lab. Things you really need to be concerned about really come right out of the lab are the length of the password, the fact that the password is not the word password, and that you have at least one uppercase letter. This is kind of minimum, I guess. Right, let's look at opacity. Okay, the two basic ways of dealing with opacity. One is with RGBA, which is right out of the Z books, and the other is with the style opacity, and then using percentages. It's actually a point. It's like a 0.6, you get 60%. Now, please note that opacity of 1.0 is kind of a waste. You're saying it's opaque. You cannot see through it. And opacity of 0 basically means it's transparent. There's nothing there. So generally somewhere between those two numbers, right? 1.0 to 0. RGBA, red, green, blue. A is the alpha channel. That's the degree, again, of how transparent that thing is. So you can do it a couple different ways. I don't mind either way, whichever way you are most comfortable with. Please use it. Okay, let's take a look at another thing here. Form field attributes. There are a lot of you can have one form, one set of tags for form, right? It's a container tag, beginning form, end form, I'm not really talking about the form tag itself. I'm talking about the fields inside the form. You're going to have several fields. Some of them that are really important, especially for text type fields, are going to be max, length, min, and required. There are other attributes that you will include as well, but these are important, especially for security's sake. If you put in a maximum length of a number of characters that can be input, then that prevents somebody from doing a SQL injection, which is a common type of security issue that people will try to take advantage of. If you don't have that in, you can do a SQL injection. You can put in all kinds of characters. If you put a max length, that's not going to happen. And you put a max in for what shows, that also makes it nice. The two are kind of independent of each other. Minimum just says, hey, I want a certain number of characters in there. That's nice. Required, of course, means that the form will not get sent forward, it will not be processed unless it is done. So that's an important thing to have for those pieces of data that you absolutely need. Let's see if we can move ahead here. iframes, okay, iframes, also called inline frames. Now, it used to be that we had lots of frames we could use and people depended upon that, but that's no more. Now the only frame that really is allowed is an iframe. A couple things that you really want to make sure you pay attention to, there are others as well, is using the iframe as a target. So if you have a link, you can link to an iframe. You can say, I want to push this content into that iframe. If you target the name, actually the ID of that iframe. You know how you use the hash mark? Okay, so you can target that iframe. But of course, you have to give that iframe an ID. So within the iframe, you must give it that ID. Also, include a size, where you're trying to create the size of that window, how big it is or how small it is. That's important. So otherwise, it can get out of hand, right? So be sure you're clear on these things. Now, the target actually is in the link to the iframe, not in the iframe tag itself. The name, ID, and size, your height, width, that kind of thing, that's part of the iframe. Okay, let's talk about animations. Okay, I'm going to try to switch over to one of the other sources here. Let's see if I can do this. And yes, okay, in the ZBooks, right, there is a chapter on animation, or a section of it on animation. What is that? It must be in the advanced CSS animation here. And this talks about a few basic things you can do with animation. One of the main important things is using keyframes. That's gonna be your important tag here. It's at keyframes, and then you're gonna have a from and a to. Okay. There are a whole bunch of this is a real good section here. I encourage you to go through this carefully and make sure you understand how this is working. Along with what they're talking about here with animation, this is just using a character. It could be anything. And along with the animations is the idea of transitions and transformations that you will get into a lot. All these different attributes regarding the animations. Please be sure you practice these things Here it talks about transitions, going from one thing to another. Be sure you're clear on this and all of the timing functions. If you want to do delays, okay, I guess they're useful sometimes. I don't use them. Transformations, I think, are wonderful. It creates very nice looks. These are just transforming to very simple blocks. You can transform anything that's an object. Pictures are very nice to transform. So what they have here in the Z-Books is really nice. This is a good thing to play with. Let me see what else we have here. Yes, this is what I really encourage you to go to. It's the W3 Schools. They have some excellent lessons here. If you haven't used W3 Schools yet, this is an excellent opportunity for you to do so. They provide you with very similar kind of environment that Z-Books does. They give you a sandbox to play in and write code and manipulate things. You should be very comfortable. I really encourage you to go through this and to go to the W3 Schools lessons as well. Okay, where are we? I want to stop this. Talked about animations. The other thing we have going on is the JavaScript password. I mentioned this to you a little bit earlier. The basic idea here again is whenever you have a form, you have fields in the form, it is really, this is a security risk. This is a large security risk. You want to somehow validate the content of the various fields. Okay? So I encourage you to make sure you get through this. And again, besides this content that's here in the Z-Books, there's a lot of other lessons you can look for, including in W3 Schools and a number of other places that deal with JavaScript password validation. The key thing here is validation. Okay? I want you to be able to validate the different fields in a form. Okay, well, that's kind of about it. I hope it helps a little bit. Please, let me know if you have any questions. Email me, and I'll try my best to help you. Aloha.